I see engineering in a lot of ways as a creative endeavor. I see AI helping engineers do what they do better and automate away some of the things that they shouldn't have to do, so they're using their brain and their own abilities to their best potential. It's a foundational shift in how software is written.
Where are we at with AI-powered engineering 1,000 days from now?
The two key areas that I see are hallucinations and memory. Over 50% of apparel that is purchased online and returned goes directly to a landfill or an incinerator. Fit preference is very unique by person, and you really can't have AI prescribe fit. We have an AI technology that at its core predicts body measurements, creates essentially an AI digital twin. And so what we're able to do is show shoppers when they're looking online, not only here's the size we think you would wear, but here's how it fits on your body. I went on a backpacking camp. We're all hanging out, and I felt this incredible, deep sadness and this need to cry. I don't know what I'm crying about. 2 days later, I got a letter, and that was the day my grandmother had died. And at about that exact time. I don't have an explanation for that.
Yeah.
But clearly I cannot explain everything with science.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Love Conquers Fear. I promised to report back to you on how the dinner went with former Governor Rick Perry and Brian Hubbard at our home. That was actually just 2 nights ago, and it was really amazing. Brian Hubbard, I would say, is one of the top 3 speakers I've ever seen in my entire life. I know that sounds kind of audacious, but it's really true. I mean, he speaks with a level of conviction and passion for the mission that he's on to save vets and save those that are really suffering, that are opioid addicts, that are alcoholics, or, a suicidal vet because they've had so much PTSD from seeing wartime, that Ibogaine cures them in 1 dose, which, show me the efficacy of any pharmaceutical drug doing that. The stories at the dinner that we hosted at our home were just unbelievable. I mean, people went around the table, and the testimonials of how Ibogaine had improved their lives personally were off the charts. I mean, as I said on the last episode, I'd never personally done Ibogaine, although, as you know by now, I'm very pro psychedelic and have seen a transformation in my lives, in part triggered by understanding the nature of our reality and it being rooted in love, and seeing that through psychedelic journeys. But I've also seen that through meditation. I've seen that through other means. And I would consider myself someone who's been spiritual for a long time in my life. But I had never had that deep, deep experience with God or source or consciousness or the astral plane or the river or whatever you want to call it. There's so many words for it, the universe, until actually I did psychedelics. And anyways, the stories going around, including from, former Governor Perry himself on his Ibogaine experience, were just amazing. So consider me now very intrigued in terms of Ibogaine. I probably will not do Ibogaine personally until many years from now. I want to wait until there's a point in time maybe where I feel like I need to de-age my brain. Right now, my brain feels like it's working just fine because it's a very intense journey. We talked about it around the table, and Brian Hubbard in particular was very transparent about how intense it is. He's like, look, it's some of the most difficult 48 hours, maybe the most difficult 48 hours you're ever going to have in your life. If you do an Ibogaine journey, the journey itself is 18 to 24 hours of extreme intensity, where you relive every moment in your life and face it head on, including the most traumatic moments. But what that does to your brain is it allows you to reset. And he says, when you come out of that 48 hours later, you feel like a new person, and you have all of your memories and everything's intact. And, even though it's quote unquote rewired your brain and increased your neuroplasticity and actually de-aged your brain, And we know this through brain studies at Stanford that have seen how much it de-ages the brain of vets that were suicidal before that took Ibogaine. The average is about 1.5 years of de-aging because the actual gray matter around their brain regrows. But you come out of that feeling like you're free again. You're reborn in a way with all of your memories intact. But these vets who literally can come back from combat and their spouses don't even recognize them, and they're really broken people, come back renewed. So I think we raised a lot of money for the Americans for Ibogaine initiative. And the purpose of this initiative is really to save people, give them a new chance at life. And that initiative now is scaling state by state. It started in Texas proudly, and the $50 million in funding passed by the Texas House and signed off by Governor Abbott is more psychedelic research funding than has ever happened in human history, not just since the Nixon administration, but ever. I did not know that. So it really is historic in terms of what's happening. And the goal here for the Americans for Ibogaine initiative, which Deborah and I are now proud donors to, is to allow this to become federally approved to help save these vets and opioid addicts and others, which would be incredible for our country. And to be clear, it would be approved in a very prescribed fashion under, clinical observation, at a retreat center where people are really monitored and taken care of. But wow, I mean, how amazing would that be? And, one way to think about it is like, why is RFK and why are, former Governor Rick Perry and Brian Hubbard, doing this starting with Ibogaine? Well, there's no way you could make the claim that Ibogaine is something that people would want to use as a street drug. I mean, who would want to go to a party and say, I want to do an 18 to 24-hour terrifying journey to reset my brain? It's just not going to happen, right? There are people who go to a party and maybe they'll do like mushroom chocolates and, have like a better experience with colors and stuff like that. I personally don't do that. When I do psychedelics, I do them for deeply spiritual reasons at a retreat center where I'm under very careful supervision. And the journeys I do are around 3.5 to 4 hours long, not a 18 to 24 hour long journey. So I haven't had that type of suffering in my life where I feel the calling. But the thing that intrigues me the most about Ibogaine is that in some cases, it has actually de-aged people's brains by 5 years or more in one dose. I've just never heard of anything like that. I mean, we should know, right? I mean, shouldn't we know why that's even possible instead of treating, Ibogaine or any psychedelic as taboo and, oh, I don't do drugs, but yet almost anybody that says that certainly drinks alcohol. And as I reminded you, I don't drink alcohol anymore. There's no efficacy studies of alcohol that shows that it's beneficial to your body or brain in any way at all. As a matter of fact, it's being linked even more and more to cancer. But I can show you tons of efficacy studies around psychedelics that making your brain work better, making you more cognitively aware. My brain has become much more aware and much more photographic in terms of my knowledge retention since starting this journey myself. And I feel much happier too. I had a great life before, but my life is even better now. So anyways, I want to report back to you on the dinner. You'll be hearing a lot more about the Americans for Ibogaine initiative as it scales up nationwide. And hopefully, knock on wood, this will lead to federal legislation that actually makes this drug available to really help people that are suffering. So you may wonder why the different background here. So I'm actually in Lake Tahoe today, and I'm on the road meeting with a very, very good friend, Morgan Linton. So Morgan, it's good to have you here, man.
Brett, total honor to be here.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I appreciate you letting me stay at your beautiful home and 7,200 feet elevation and just gorgeous, gorgeous.
Glad you didn't get altitude sickness. You look totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Survived the first night.
Yeah. Like I said, all I needed to do is take one Tylenol, and then
There you
I'm
go.
fine.
Perfect.
Just one Tylenol. The same thing happens to me. I go to the Aspen Action Forum every year. It's part of the Aspen Institute, and Aspen's at a very high altitude. And I love that conference, but I just need to take one Tylenol and then I'm good.
There you go.
So it's beautiful. I mean, it's. I didn't realize that that Nevada actually is the most mountainous state in the United States. How many people know that? I mean, everybody kind of associates it with
Not many.
Vegas.
Yeah. And especially, I don't think a lot of people know that there's, a huge amount of Lake Tahoe that's on the Nevada side. And a lot of that, when it was originally developed, they decided to preserve a lot of it as national forest land. So it's also one of the most preserved parts of Lake Tahoe and the Tahoe National Forest.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. You and your wife, Daina, have really set up a beautiful life together here.
Very happy.
So we miss you in Austin, but
Yeah.
but we're happy for you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
So you and I know each other because we met when you and Daina were in the Techstars class
Yes.
in Austin.
Yes.
So maybe we just start with that, like how we met and what you're doing now with Bold Metrics.
Yeah. And you may not even know, I realize, I don't know if we've even talked about the early part before we met you, because when I can't remember who I was talking about. I was talking to somebody about the Austin startup scene and the tech scene, and they said, well, at the kind of core ethos of the Austin tech scene is this company called Bazaar Voice. And it's kind of one of our like banner companies. And the founder, Brett, he's this amazing guy who's like very philanthropic and very involved in the startup scene and also an active angel investor. And I remember going to Austin, going to Techstars and talking with Daina and saying, we've got to figure out how we can mechanize a way to meet this Brett guy, because he sounds like he's in the middle of all of this. And then it happened naturally through Techstars, as you know. And then I think you became an advisor pretty early on.
I jumped in.
Yeah, I want to say like month one. I mean, I think we just felt a lot of synergy together, both with where we were in our journey and some similarities to your journey, as well as just kind of like the way we see the world and the evolution of technology. And then, as you know, when you go through Techstars and you stand on stage, and Daina, our CEO, gave the pitch in front of our auditorium full of investors, you introduced Daina, which was an incredible honor, and you gave one of the most amazing introductions.
Well, it was easy to do. I mean, it was easy to believe in you guys.
Yeah, it was really, really powerful. As far as Bold Metrics and like who we are and what we do for people that don't know us, of course, we have an AI technology that at its core predicts body measurements, creates essentially an AI digital twin. We have the largest body data library in the world. It's over 150 million AI digital twins. We're generating more AI body data than any company on the planet today, which is really exciting and is giving us a huge moat on the data side. But what I'm really the most proud of is the impact that our technology makes. And so at a high level, how it works, if you look at customers of ours, like if you go to like Patagonia and you go to their website, we power fit and sizing for them, or Viore, a lot of companies where people have used us and might not even know about it. You're answering very simple questions, things like height, weight, gene waste, age, shoe size, and that goes into our machine learning models. And from that, we're at its core predicting over 50 body measurements, as if you step into a body scanner. And then we map that to garment data to make a prediction and show not just, oh, hey, Brett, you're a small or medium or a large, but really simulating what you do when you are shopping in a store. Very few people go to a store and just say, oh, I know I'm a small, I'll buy a small.
Right.
They'll usually say, especially if it's a brand they haven't worn before, oh, hey, I've never tried Viore before. I'm usually a medium, but sometimes I'm a large. I'm going to take both of those sizes, and I'm going to go in a dressing room, and then I'm going to pick the size that I like based on how I like things to fit. And that fit preference is very unique by person, and you really can't have AI prescribe fit. Like for me, I like things like slightly snug in my chest when I
Mm-hmm.
buy stuff. So I look for that in clothing. When I take clothes in the dressing room, I look for that. I have a friend that him and I like could be body doubles. We're very similar. He likes things looser in the chest.
Mm.
So if you're to have AI say, oh, Morgan, you're going to wear this size. Oh, and your friend, of course, he'll wear the same size. You would get it wrong because you're missing that preference
Right.
piece. And so what we're able to do is show shoppers when they're looking online, not only here's the size we think you would wear, but here's how it fits on your body. Here's where it's loose and tight. And then they can do what they would do in a dressing room, go down a size, go up a size. And then what's really powerful is we're taking that data of, okay, what size do we recommend?
Mm-hmm.
Did they go up or down a size? And if they did they keep it or did they return it?
Right.
And then we're using that to continually update our machine learning models.
Mm-hmm.
So those predictions tune over time based on real customer behavior. And then we provide that data also back to brands as insights so they can change the way they make their clothes. And
Right.
that's been a core vision of ours since we started the company, which is that the standard sizing, small, medium, large, came about in the Civil War. And the way that
Wow, I didn't know that.
the way that clothes are made today is still the exact same it was made in the Civil War. The data behind it is still, they go, oh, hey, Brett's the guy that typically wears our large.
Mm.
So we're going to have our designers build a large and make sure it fits on Brett. And then what they do is they grade the patterns down and up to get the medium and the small,
Mm-hmm.
the extra large and the extra, extra large. And so, the further away you get from that base pattern, the further away you get from understanding who it is that's actually buying it. And so we're also the first company to be able to provide brands with data on how their actual shoppers are wearing the clothes. And particularly in sizes with high returns, we can tell brands, okay, yeah, your medium and large are great, but your extra, extra large has your highest return rate. And it turns out it's not that the whole garment doesn't fit right. It's actually the shoulder width.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to adjust just that, it would fit 80% more of the shopper that's actually buying it. And so that for us is very powerful because it's really foundationally changing the way the clothes are made with data.
Yeah. And just to talk about what the scale of this problem is, I mean, if you're a apparel retailer,
Yes.
what type of returns do you typically see
Yeah.
for people that bought the wrong size?
Yeah. Yeah. So apparel, especially online, you're looking at typically north of 30%.
Yeah.
And as the price goes up and the garment becomes more structured, then you're looking at 40, 50% or higher. And the piece that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's by design that brands don't talk about this, is that over 50% of apparel that is purchased online and returned goes directly to a landfill or an incinerator.
Wow.
And so it's actually, from a sustainability standpoint, unbelievably destructive. And people don't think about it. So
Yeah.
people think now, oh, hey, this is great. Online shopping is so easy. I can buy 2 sizes and just use my home as a dressing room. And if you're doing that and you're buying from a brand that, isn't necessarily focused on ethically sourcing and sustainability practices around returns,
Yeah.
then it may be easy for you because you go, no, I'm going to try on the medium, I'm going to try on the large. Oh, okay, I'll just return the medium. And consumers just assume, oh, it'll go back out to somebody else. But instead, in a lot of cases, it's just set on fire. And then, of
Wow.
course, the pollutants from that, there's no
Yeah.
filtering process.
And
there.
one thing that people probably don't know, because I certainly didn't know, I recently read this book by Pablo Holman called Deep Future. Phenomenal book. I wrote a long review of it. People can find that on my Medium or Substack or LinkedIn or my blog. And it's a really, really good book about thinking about deep tech. But one of the things he talks about in that book is apparel. And I was shocked to find that a third of apparel that's manufactured is never even worn once.
Yes.
Did you know that?
Yes, I knew that.
I was like, wow. And it's really because of this whole fast fashion movement, which
Exactly.
is super, super carbon producing.
Yes.
It's really,
And if you think about the cycle of, think about the return that is incinerated. It's made, suppose you're buying it in the US and suppose it's made overseas, right? So it's made in a factory that's like probably polluting both the air and the water, right? And then what happens? It goes onto a boat that's then polluting the ocean and the air. It lands in the US. It now goes onto a truck that's polluting the air to go to a DC. Now you order it and it goes onto another truck what's polluting the air to go to your house. You try it on and you, I don't really like it. It goes back onto a truck that pollutes the air, and then they set it on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really, it's one of those inconvenient truths that not a lot of people want to talk about, because obviously we all like our clothes and,
Yes.
and our physical avatar, we want to dress it up. But it is a huge problem
Massive problem.
at a
Yeah.
massive scale.
Yeah.
And it's, it's something that people should at least get educated on,
Yes.
so that they know what the downsides are.
Yeah, I mean, the number of people that do all the right things when it comes to recycling, and they divide their trash into 4 different categories, and they like really go the distance, and they compost. But then I've talked to friends of mine. I'm from Berkeley. I have a lot of friends like that. And I've talked to friends like that, and I always say, when they're showing me their recycling procedure, I say, "Oh, that's great. Hey, what do you do with clothes when you buy them online?" Like, "Oh, no, it's great. I do this and I return it." When I explain this to them, I mean, they're horrified, but they have no idea. And it's one of these very you know deliberately kept secrets in apparel, that even within the brands, like I've talked to some multi-billion-dollar brands where I know that they're taking the returns, they're going directly to a landfill or an incinerator. And I talk to people that work at those brands and ask them, "Do you know what happens with your returns?"
Right.
And they don't know.
Wow. Yeah, one of my favorite case studies back in the Bizarre Voice days was LL Bean. And LL Bean's CMO was on stage and talking about that they would use customer reviews powered by Bizarre Voice to find out like which apparel products were the lowest rated. And they had three different things that would happen with that product. One is that if it was, and this happened the majority of the time, if it was low rated, let's say it's a 1 or 2 star average, then all of those reviews and everything would go back into the product development cycle, and they would manufacture a different version of it. So they'd keep the SKU,
Yeah, interesting.
but transform it and really use the data for that. The second thing that would happen is that if they're like, okay, we don't want to even manufacture this anymore, but it's still decent, then they would donate it. The third thing is, wow, this is so bad. This is such a big misfire for us. We do not want this at all to ever have our label.
Sure.
They would incinerate it.
Yeah, sure.
And it was just a phenomenal case study about how people were leveraging word of mouth to transform their business. What's your favorite case study for Bold Metrics?
I mean, for me, the thing that I get the most excited about is that the brands that use us to change the way they make their clothes.
Yeah.
Based on the way customers are wearing them, particularly in size ranges that are less understood. So, there's a lot of areas where we make an impact where so few brands understand the exact body shape and size that's wearing their extra, extra small or their triple extra large.
Yep.
And those tend to be relatively underserved markets and very challenging markets for people to find clothes that fit them, to find clothes that fit them the way they like. And there has never been a feedback loop for that data. Right. Like I said, the brands are still just saying, we're going to make this for the person that wears, it's usually a medium or large.
Right.
We're going to make it for them. And they either put it on a person or they put it on some type of a dress form or a body block.
Right.
And they're grading that pattern. And the further you get away from that base pattern, the further you tend to get away from reality. And so, I mean, for me, from an impact standpoint, there's 2 pieces. One is foundationally changing an industry is very powerful. And also, to me, we were talking about this last night at dinner, but I wake up every day and feel like we're living in the past. I strongly believe that. And so for me, it feels like I still can't believe that we haven't progressed to a more data-driven process for designing clothes, because the impact is, very, very positive, obviously, for shoppers. So they're getting the size that actually fits them the way they want. But even more so, what we were just talking about, this totally unknown part for most people of the apparel industry, of the massive impact we're having on the planet. And this ties into stuff I'm sure we'll talk about later on, but we're at a tipping point in history where we have the ability to use technology and to use AI in particular to be able to make the world a better place, make the planet a better place. And this is something where you have this wonderful dual impact of providing a better experience for consumers and also taking something that's one of the most high impact deleterious things we do for the planet
Right.
and undoing that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So in full disclosure, just for everybody that's hearing this or watching this, I'm an advisor in the company. I'm a very proud advisor in the company. I really fell in love with you and Daina from the beginning. And I love the company and I think it's doing great. So just FYI, that I am involved in it, but I'm actually not here to promote the company. What I'm actually here for is to talk about AI powered engineering. But before we go there, maybe we could just go back in time. Tell me a bit about your childhood and how you
sure.
got to this point of founding Bold Metrics. Like
Yeah.
what happened before I met you at all?
Yeah. I mean,
We've had some really good conversations about spirituality already on this
yeah,
trip.
yeah. I mean, I'd like to think I kind of have always been an engineer. That's
Mhm.
kind of been like the wiring for my brain. So, I can remember as a kid, I was really into like circuits as a kid, as a young kid, like 6 or 7 years old. And I had set up, I remember like one of the first things I had engineered prior to touching a computer was I had set up all these lights around my room and I had these wires running around with little bulbs and I'd set up the resistors and understood how to set those up. And I was always tinkering with things. And I drove my parents crazy. I can still remember this because they were not very happy about it. I, uh, I'm pretty sure this was when I was in junior high. I had saved up some money and I went to Ace Hardware and there's these great light switches that I like that were conductive light switches where it was just a metal plate. You may have seen them. They don't really use them much anymore, but the longer you hold your finger on the metal plate, the more it will either brighten or dim the light. And if you tap it, it switches between modes. Not super intuitive, but very cool technology.
Right. Right.
And I bought like 10 of these light switches.
Yeah.
And when my parents were out one night, I thought this would be a great surprise.
Right.
You know, I turned off the
I
electricity
know
in our
where
house
this is going.
and I replaced all of our light switches.
Right.
And they came home and I said, surprise, I have put the most advanced light switches on the market. I paid for it with my own money
Right.
in our house.
Right.
And my parents, in about 5 minutes, realized like, this is an incredibly challenging type of light switch to operate.
Oh no.
And they said, I don't understand how this works. No, you tap once, you hold your finger.
Yeah.
It's conductive, so it'll brighten and dim. And they're like, I don't know how we can operate the lights at our house.
Oh no.
So I had to take them all out.
Right.
Um,
Right.
And so,
At least it was an act of love, you know?
yes, no,
You're
I
trying
thought it
to
was a good
manifest
idea.
love.
Yeah. Those light switches remained in my bedroom though,
Right.
until I went to college. And then my parents said, before you leave for college, can you please take this out?
Oh no. Even your own
So
room.
so that was that.
Well, we want to reclaim your room and we want to know how to operate it.
Yes, yeah. And so, my journey, I guess, I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, but may as well now because I'm old enough that I can.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're the first person to ever document this because this has been like a part of my past that maybe I've hidden that I didn't need to hide, and it's just part of
Yeah.
all of our journeys. But so I was very interested originally in bulletin board systems, which I know you were involved with.
Yeah. I started my first one when I was 10.
Yeah.
And actually, just going back in time just for a moment, I got Pong when I was 4, and I was trying to take it apart and figure out how it worked.
Sure.
And that's
Yeah.
why my mom got me my first computer at age 7
Really
and learned how to
interesting.
program with me. Is she was like,
Interesting.
this is kind of weird that my kid is doing this.
Interesting.
Maybe he's meant to really create a better future through
Yeah.
technology. And so I've actually known my purpose since I was 7,
Interesting.
in part because my mom realized.
Fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's a cool synchronicity between
Yeah.
our stories in terms of
Yeah.
when we started.
Yeah. So I was very into bulletin board systems,
Yeah.
and I grew up in Berkeley, California, and you could actually there was can't remember what it was called. It was one of those like smaller, large format newsprint magazines called like CompuWeekly or something. Mostly ads, a couple articles,
Yep.
and in the very back they had a list of BBS phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And every week I would get that,
Yep.
and I would just try every BBS.
Yeah.
And
I did the same thing too.
Okay.
Even though I had a BBS, I was
Sure.
like
Yeah.
constantly finding others, you know?
Yeah. And I thought that was so cool. I loved that concept of being able to connect with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so then
And we should describe real quickly. Let's describe what a BBS is. So,
yeah, I
so
guess,
do you want to
yeah,
do?
we're old enough now that
Yeah.
people might not know. Yeah, no, you should describe it because you have
Well,
the
so
background in it. Yeah.
so the first modem I actually had was 110 baud, and
Okay.
when you saw
beat me there.
text go across the screen, I could almost type faster.
Yeah.
But a bulletin board system was a communication software package that allowed two computers to talk to each other over modem, and you would have message boards. So let's say that I connected to another bulletin board system, the text would appear on the screen, and I could, start typing messages in the message boards. I could chat sometimes with the system operator, which is the person running the BBS. I could download software, and usually there were upload and download ratios so that you didn't have what were called leeches in the BBS
Yes. Yeah.
nomenclature, where
Yeah.
they just come in and just download all your software and then peace out. And the one frustrating thing about BBS is that it would tie up that phone line. And so I had to have a separate phone line for my BBS.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah.
sometimes my dad would come along and pick up the phone, and I'm like totally
Log
mess up
everybody
the
off,
connection.
yeah.
Right, right. And so, eventually had multiple phone lines, but I it was super cool because you're getting a window into the future of the internet and electronic communications at a very early age.
Yeah.
And so when the internet came along for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, it was like very familiar.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
just the scale and the cost was different. The cost was like pretty much free because universities were providing the connection for free,
Exactly. Yeah.
but the scale was global.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the beautiful global village that the internet
Yeah.
was finally manifesting.
Yeah. 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 So, I mean, I, like you, had that early inspiration with BBSs, and at a very young age identified, oh, computers are a way to be connected as people.
Mm-hmm.
And also, going back to me just being very interested in tinkering with things, oh, computers are also ways to be able to tinker and find out very interesting, unique details about systems and how they operate.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was on BBSs, and I guess connecting more and more BBSs, I started to read a little bit about computer hacking
Mm-hmm.
and got very interested in that, and
Mhm.
interested in like understanding systems and understanding loopholes in systems.
Yep.
And I was on America Online, and we had, at that time, America Online, you like have these shared accounts where you have different logins. So like my dad had one and I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
one. And me and some friends have been reading some more things about computer hacking.
Yeah. We should
And-
do it at the same time, though. All right. You know what I'm about to say.
No, I don't know what you're about to say.
You've got mail. We got to do
Oh,
it.
sure, yeah.
You've
You
got
got
mail. That's exactly what it
Yes,
sounded like.
Yes, that is exactly what it sounded like.
There's actually a movie made. You've
Yes, you've got mail. Yes, I
like
saw the
who's-
movie. Yeah.
who's in that? I can't remember,
It
but
was from like early 90s, I want to say.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's
So-
American Online just pieced out. Did you see that?
Yes,
I think
I did.
It was
I
just
did.
this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means actually I'm very safe in telling this story. I held off for a while because of this. So when I was trying to think of how old I was now, maybe 12. It was
Mhm.
either 12 or 13.
Yeah.
I found a loophole in America Online and exploited the loophole. And essentially it allowed me to create cloud storage on America Online.
Oh my gosh.
Massive
How
cloud
cool.
storage.
Yeah.
A cloud storage that ended up being like, I would say like 100 times the hard disk space that I have.
Wow.
And I was very happy about this, and I was using it. And America Online, someone on the security team figured it out.
Sure.
And
Does they run out storage?
yeah, and
Who's this guy, Morgan?
ended up
Taking off
yeah,
our storage.
ended up contacting my dad, contacting law enforcement,
Oh, no.
shutting down our account, very much banning me
Right.
from America Online.
Man,
Um,
you didn't have mail anymore.
I did, well, I did, not the very level. And so my parents said, "Hey, you're not going to be allowed to use online services for," I can't remember how long it was, probably like about a year.
Wow.
And I was devastated.
Oh, yeah.
First off, because I really thought, it wasn't doing much harm. It was an interesting exploit I found. I felt kind of proud of it.
Yeah.
I got in a lot of trouble for it, which was a bummer. And I felt very ashamed of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also felt like I would really miss out by not being able to be connected online for a year. So I thought, what am I going to do? I have a year now. I'm really interested in computers, but I'm not going to be able to be online.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually decided that I wanted to learn Adobe Photoshop and web design, and I would have to learn it myself all locally.
Right.
So
Right.
at that point in time, it was pretty much all HTML, and I
Mhm.
think very, very early JavaScript.
Yep.
Um,
I was
and
programming that stuff at the beginning.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I was doing it only in a vacuum and only able to run it locally. I think then it was NCSA Mosaic and Netscape 1.1N,
Mhm.
I think. And so and it was very interesting because what ended up happening was without being able to go online and just learning everything in a vacuum and being so focused, I was spending, I don't know, 3 to 5 hours a day
Mhm.
doing Photoshop tutorials, doing HTML tutorials, all through books
Mhm.
because that was
Mhm.
how I could access
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah.
So I just kept buying Photoshop books and I kept buying HTML and JavaScript books.
Mhm.
Um, and I learned a lot about both. And I was starting to do like some photorealistic art in Photoshop, and I
Mhm.
was also using that to make websites. And we had a family friend over for dinner, and he saw what I was working on. Like after dinner, hey, can I be excused? And I would go and go do stuff in my room. And he saw what I was doing. He walked in my room and he said, like, what are you doing that in? And I said, I'm doing this in Photoshop and then I'm
Right.
putting it
Right.
online, but I can't really put it online, but I'm building a web page around this. And he said to my parents, this is pretty unique what Morgan's doing.
Right.
And he said, I have a friend, a guy named Bob Batty, who is the CEO of a company called Chaos Tools.
Mhm.
And that was a company in San Francisco that had created software. It was like production level video software for, like, if you saw the movie Jumanji, like the text Jumanji that comes in
Mhm.
was done with their software called Entitle. David Letterman show,
Oh,
the
cool.
text coming in was done with Entitle. They were like the best of the best for that, like uh, lots of visual effects around text and things like that. And he said, you know, what would you guys think about Morgan like interning for Chaos Tools?
Mhm.
And my parents were like, I don't know. He's like only 13. Like, can he do that? It's in San Francisco. And he said, I think he's really talented. Like, you guys should get him out of the
Yeah.
bedroom. You shouldn't just be doing this in the bedroom.
Right. You shouldn't just
Like,
in the
yeah,
basement.
he should be doing something
Right.
that can make a bigger impact.
Yeah.
And so he set up a meeting with the CEO of this company.
Mhm.
I'm only 13. So
Wow.
my parents come with me. We take Bart to San Francisco and we go to this tech office in San Francisco. It was at 55 Hawthorne Street, which that building is still there. And
Mhm.
I walk by that building a few times a
I've
year.
been to that
and
building.
just,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
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 And so we went up and I was showing him some of the stuff I was doing, and my parents are there. And he said, "Hey, I'd love to hire Morgan in whatever capacity we can have him. He
Mhm.
seems like he's got some talent here, and we could really use that creativity." And my parents like, "Well, how does that work if he's 13?" And we worked out a way,
Mm.
and I instantly became the highest paid person I knew in that age
Wow.
group because I was working for
How
this software
cool.
company now, and they paired me up with a guy named Bill Niffenegger, who was the creative director, who was like a kind of semi-famous Photoshop guy,
Mhm.
and he was the creative director, reported directly to the CEO, and Bill and I got along like instantly, like very charismatic,
Yep.
very classic Bay Area weird but visionary guy.
Mhm.
And when I started working with him, he said, "Hey, I'm just gonna let you know, like, I'm not gonna treat you like a kid. Like, you clearly know what you're doing, and we're a software company. We're growing fast. We're building interesting stuff. Your voice matters. You just tell me as you see things what you think we should be doing.
Right.
If you think this makes sense, if it doesn't, you're gonna do some graphics, but you're also gonna talk about product design." And I was like in it.
Mhm.
And it evolved to, as I was with the company, they went to go present at two conferences, Seabold and Seagraph at the Moscone Center in San Francisco.
Mhm.
And Bill had said to the CEO, he said, Morgan would be great at presenting.
Right.
And I
Oh my
thought,
gosh.
I
That's so
thought,
cool.
I don't know about that. I
Yeah.
don't know if I want to present
Yeah.
at
Talk
at
about
a
putting you out
at a
in the limelight.
conference.
Yeah.
And I said, but I can try it. And they said, don't worry, we've got our sales team or our
Right.
normal people that do these presentations, but like, let's give you a try.
Yeah.
And so, we had a very nice, very
It's at age
expensive.
13 still.
At 13, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was actually at Macworld, Seabold, and Seagraph were the 3 shows.
Wow.
And I think the first one actually was Macworld. And so we had this really nice booth, pretty much the front of Moscone Center, and we were developing a product called Flashbox that
Mhm.
was going to be a competitor to Photoshop.
Okay.
But I wasn't supposed to say that.
All right.
And we were
Right.
developing our own programming language to compete with Java.
Okay.
And Flashbox was written in that programming language, essentially a cross-platform programming language where you could write it once,
Right.
and then you could compile it to run on a Mac or on a PC.
Okay.
And so they had the regular presenter from the company do his presentation stuff, and I was watching him.
Yeah.
And then they said, okay, do you want to go up and do it? You helped create the product. You can do this. And the PR people talking about what I could and couldn't say. And the marketing people said, make sure to say this like this. And it was like very stressful as a kid to try to remember
Right.
all the ways I was supposed to say things and to be careful not to get sued. And so I get up and I start talking. And instantly, people that are walking by see, well, there's like a 13-year-old
Right. What's
talking.
going on here?
The booth gets like really full of people.
All right.
And I realized like, oh, I love this. Like I
Right.
felt very
Well, 'cause you're
natural.
talking about something
Yeah, I
you
felt very
love.
natural about it. And anyway, I finished the talk. Like people are clapping. There's all these people. It's like an incredible feeling.
Right.
And I go, there's like an inside area in the booth. And I go in with a bunch of the executives and they're like, you just said something you're not supposed to say. You said, remember, you're not supposed to say
Right.
that it's better than Photoshop or competing with Photoshop. We're going to get sued now. What did you do? And I
Right.
remember I was crying
Right.
in the
Sure.
back of the booth
Right. Right.
here. And they said, no, stop crying, stop crying, stop crying. Don't do that again. Just stop crying, stop
Right.
crying.
Right.
And they said, it was a huge hit. You have to get back out there in like 5 minutes. And
Oh
I said,
my gosh.
oh, I don't know if I want to do this again.
Right.
I said,
Right. I'm being in
this was
trouble.
kind of traumatic. I
Yeah.
said, no, just remember, and I can
Do you
remember.
realize I just got banned from like
Yeah.
how to using my
And I remember it was like counting down where it's like 3 minutes, 2 minutes. And the whole time, because they realized what a risk this was, but how much publicity it was bringing,
right.
I've got now like 3 different executives telling me, okay, when you talk about this, you have to explain it like this. When you say this, remember, don't say this and say
Right.
this.
Right.
And I realized like, oh, kind of the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Right.
But I did it, and then I continued presenting for them at these shows. And the San Francisco, it was either the Chronicle or the Examiner. That next day, my mom like flipped out and she said, "Oh my goodness, you're on the front page of the business section." And there was actually, I still have this, a photo of me right next to a photo of Steve Jobs, and it said
Wow.
like the quote was like Steve Jobs, whiz kid Morgan Linton presented the future of blah 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 at Macworld.
How
And I
cool
thought,
is that?
wow, totally
Wow.
surreal.
And that's there's a great spiritual lesson in that too, which is suffering is a
Mhm.
teacher,
Yeah.
and usually something beautiful follows suffering.
Yes.
So even
Yeah.
though you had that experience of suffering for a while,
Yeah.
it created this trigger for you to learn
Yeah.
something new
Yeah.
that then you became an expert on at a very young age.
Yeah. Yeah, and it taught me, like, through that experience. I mean, I think first off, there's probably a little too much pressure to put on a kid at that time in some ways, but it also taught me, especially that first moment where I got in a lot of trouble. I'm behind the booth and I
Mhm.
have to go back out there. And I thought to myself, there's no way I can go back out there.
Mhm.
I've just been crying. I feel totally defeated. And then I don't know, there was something inside of me that said, no, you can do this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
cast that aside, have the confidence. And I went back out there and I did a better job than I did
Yeah. Yeah.
before. And it didn't really stress me out. And I felt very confident. And that taught me, I think, at a young age, kind of the confidence of like, I maybe have more power to control my thoughts, my emotions, things like this than I thought I could.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, just so you know, my background, I was terrified of giving public speeches. I
Mm.
think I first spoke at age 21 or
Oh, really? I didn't know that. God, I never guessed that.
so, and it was
Really?
really, really
Wow.
hard. I mean,
Okay.
Deborah and I have been married, for now 29 years.
Yeah.
And when we watched that show, Silicon Valley, she was like, "You were like Richard Hendricks. You were the one throwing up in the trash can."
Mm.
He was the CEO of that
Yeah.
funny show, great, great show by Mike Judge. So like it's so cool that you conquered a fear
Yeah.
that is for some people more terrifying than the fear of death.
Yeah, sure.
The fear of
Yeah,
speaking in
yeah,
public, and you
yeah,
conquered that at age
yeah.
13. I don't know if I've heard of anybody else conquering that outside of our oldest daughter.
Huh,
I will
huh.
say that Rachel gave a TEDx talk when she was 9
Wow.
and just absolutely
That's
rocked it.
cool.
And she actually, to make it even more amazing, she had sprained her ankle 2 weeks before,
Hmm.
and so she actually hobbled up on stage on crutches.
Unbelievable.
And, the only way you can see that, and I could share this video in the show
Mm,
notes,
mm,
she talked all about inner beauty and
mm,
transformation,
mm.
is that you can see the little boot in the side if
Interesting.
you really
Okay,
look for it.
sure.
Do you have any video of you speaking
I
early?
don't have any video. I have my mom made a million photocopies of
Yeah.
the San Francisco Chronicle article, and
If it's anywhere online, I'd love to share it in the
I
show
wish it
notes.
was. I
Yeah,
wish
yeah,
it was if I could
yeah.
find it. Yeah, but it was interesting because
You should put one of these articles online though, like
sure
somewhere, like
that
just
that I should
yeah,
actually.
because
Yeah, that I
because
will.
that's
Yeah,
such a cool part of
yeah,
your story.
yeah.
Because you are like one of the superpowers you have is that you're deeply technical, but you're also very good at selling. And the best salespeople are people that have genuine depth
Hmm.
in technology. At least this is for tech companies,
Hmm.
and they are super passionate about what they do,
Yes.
and that like
Yeah.
comes off so naturally for
Appreciate
you
that. Yeah.
because you're doing something that you are passionate about, and
Yeah.
that was apparent
Yeah.
from the moment I met you and Dana.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dana's the same way.
Yeah, yeah, we both are. I mean, we're
Yeah,
really, engineers and technologists above all else.
yeah,
I mean, we just believe so much in the potential for technology, and particularly like this time in human history with AI to change the world. And I think we feel as you do, and as is a lot related to the theme of this,
yeah,
um, the great responsibility that comes with
yeah.
that for those of us that are building, creating these technologies.
It's very prevalent. I mean, Jensen is someone, the CEO of NVIDIA, who is deeply technical
Hmm.
and very good at selling.
Hmm.
And I just had over at our home last week this
Hmm.
amazing woman. I'd never
Mm.
met her before, but we got introduced by a friend. Her name's Archana,
Mm.
and she's the global head of sales for all of AMD.
Oh,
So, like
wow.
geopolitically, it's
Wow.
very interesting
Yeah.
for her
Huh.
seeing what's happening. But her whole background has actually been tech
Mhm.
and including like deep engineering.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so she's able to go up and down the stack in
Sure.
those meetings.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed with her. I mean, deep humility combined
Yeah.
with deep wisdom
Yeah.
and and real depth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's pretty common when you get to some of this highest levels of these companies that
Mhm.
people have real technical depth.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
But it's yeah, what a cool. I did not know that about you at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah, so
It's
then after that, another piece is I I was doing web design. I was allowed back on the internet. I was doing some web design stuff and ended up getting contacted by a friend of a friend who said, "Hey, I think there's an opportunity to start a web design company
hmm
in Berkeley." And there weren't really any web design companies in Berkeley at that time. I want to say it was like 1993 or 1994. And he said, "I think that real estate companies and real estate agents should have websites."
hmm
And he said, "You know how to do web design.
hmm
I have nice suits. I drive a BMW. I'm a good
All right,
salesperson.
all right.
I don't know anything about designing websites, but I really want to learn. What if we start a business together?" Once again, this was like a similar thing where he's pitching my parents, and my parents are going, "What's going on here?
What's going on here?
And my parents are saying, "You have to decide."
Hopefully, your parents are thinking like, okay, my son's really amazing. This we should just kind of
They were
like
they were
get into
mostly
this.
positive about, but they were also concerned of
Yeah.
like, am I losing some aspects of my childhood, I think.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha.
because for the web design company, he said, "We have a great opportunity here, but, I think the only time we could do this is to work on Saturday, Sunday."
Hmm.
So, like, how would you feel, Morgan, if you're not, like, hanging out with your friends on Saturday, Sunday, but instead, like, we're running this business and,
Mhm.
we can try to balance it in some ways, but, like, it probably would be, if this does take off, be kind of time consuming there.
Mhm.
And I decided, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And so we actually did the very first website for Coldwell Banker Premier Estates. And he actually, like, convinced Coldwell Banker they needed a website. Same
Wow.
thing for Grubb and Ellis. I remember we were charging $1,000 an hour and we were
$1,000 an
and
hour.
we were splitting it
Wow.
50-50. So I was at that time, I want to say 14, and I was making $500 an hour designing websites.
Unbelievable.
So I was making like way more money than I would have expected to make at that age. And actually,
You wouldn't make that in a month of allowance, I don't think.
no,
You
no,
know,
I had a very low
like
allowance. My parents were very
1 hour.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. And it was interesting because the thing that we saw was the ability. It was the first time I introduced a technology, actually, because as we were doing these websites and we started to do websites for individual brokers and do websites for individual properties, and there was a lot of interest at that time in the Bay Area for homes that were, say $3 to $5 million homes, having a website really elevating that.
hmm
And I came up with this idea that I called GIF TV. And I said, the problem we have with these existing real estate websites is we're not really leveraging the technology, because all you're doing is scrolling down a page and looking at photos of the house. It's just like a pamphlet.
Right.
I said, but animated GIFs exist.
Mm.
What if I can take these images and compress them down to look as good as they can, and have it actually do a home tour?
Wow.
And so
That was way ahead of its time.
we actually introduced that technology. And I think that moment in a lot of ways was very powerful for me, because we did that. And I remember real estate agents going, whoa, so someone can just go to the website and it will walk them through a tour. What a cool concept. And I remember that being deployed and going live and seeing it on sites with different homes, and then some of those homes selling, and the real estate agents saying, gosh, I don't know exactly what role this played, but this was really cool. And that, in a lot of ways, sparked my interest for not just like building software or writing code or building products, but like the inventor side of me
hmm
came out there, where I realized, ooh, that feeling was a better feeling than anything else, where I came up with something new and different.
hmm
And that changed my life, honestly.
Wow. That is so cool. What a incredible gift that you got to do that as a kid. And how long did you do that?
We ran that company for, I want to say, maybe like a year and a half
Yeah.
or so. And then it was interesting
By the way, that
because,
could have, as you know, that could have been a whole software
yeah,
company that went global.
yeah,
That
yeah,
had these
yeah,
animated GIFs for
yeah,
selling real estate
yeah.
all over the world.
Yeah, I ended up at this crossroads because then I got introduced to somebody else at a company in Berkeley called Zynet, and then they offered me a job.
hmm
And I thought, okay, I'm running the web design thing and doing this with real estate. But Zynet was doing really interesting stuff, and they were using Silicon Graphics computers and
hmm
doing a lot of testing. It was actually this like throughput testing with Silicon Graphics computers. And I was too fascinated by the idea of getting to work with these amazing SGI machines.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I went to work for them, and that's essentially the company that I worked for until I went off to college.
Yeah. And then you went off to CMU. We were
Yeah,
talking about that last
yeah,
night. So Carnegie
yeah,
Mellon
yeah,
University.
yeah,
Tell us about that. Like, how
yeah,
did you decide
yeah,
CMU and
yeah, yeah. It was a weird way to decide. So
yeah.
as we were talking about dinner last night, I actually just went. I'm a very data driven person, not shockingly, and I went to U.S. News and World Reports, and I just looked at what schools have the top computer science programs, and I just wanted to apply to all of the top, like the top 5.
hmm
And Carnegie Mellon was number 1, and I had never heard of it. Back at that time, this was 1999. It wasn't actually as well known of a university as it is today. And I remember saying to my dad, "Well, number 1 is Carnegie Mellon. What is that?" My dad said, "Oh no, that's a very good school.
Right.
It's
Right.
actually really hard to get into."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I'm going to apply there early decision, because that's number 1. So that's where
hmm
I want to go." And then I applied to Stanford and MIT and a bunch of other schools. And I got in early decision. And what's funny is I had set up to meet with someone from Carnegie Mellon, because they have a program where you can meet with grads that are in your area to like hear what their experience was like.
hmm
And so there was someone that was actually doing their PhD at UC Berkeley, but had done their undergrad at Carnegie Mellon. And I got in early decision the day before I went to meet him for coffee. And so when we met for coffee, I said, well, I got in early decision. I guess I'm going. I hope this conversation goes well, because
Right.
I
Right.
guess I've made this decision. And he was kind of surprised, like, "Oh, you've never been to Pittsburgh?" And I said, "No, I've never been. I don't
No,
know
I
what
just
it's going to
saw
be
this
like."
in a magazine.
So yeah, I got in and moved to Pittsburgh. And my first year was a really intimidating year. It was a very powerful experience because I went into the experience thinking that I had so much confidence then with everything that had happened to me in high
Of
school.
course, yeah.
And it was without a doubt the most humbling experience of my life. I remember the first class I went to, Carnegie Mellon, the professor gets up, he goes, "Oh, you know, welcome to Carnegie Mellon. This is going to be a great journey for all of you. Just one thing I have to tell all of you. I am going to give you homework as if you have no other classes. And so it's up to you to figure out how to balance your time."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, my class is going to be kind of intense.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next class, the teacher said, "Hey, I don't care what other classes you have. I'm going to give you homework this is your only class." And that continued.
Wow.
And I thought, what did I get myself into? And
Right.
then a
Right.
lot of my peers were people that were like valedictorians of their high schools. And I really felt like were much smarter than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt very intimidated. And I thought, I think I'm in over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was much harder than I was expecting. The classes were very, very hard, harder than anything I'd ever done before. Particularly on the math side and the physics side were
Mm-hmm.
very, very challenging. And there was a point freshman year where I just was wondering, is this the right path for me? Have I put
Right.
myself in a situation that like I shouldn't be in? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not smart enough to be here. I think that these people make sense to be here, but I don't make sense to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
I
realized they were thinking the same thing.
Well, some of them were, some of them weren't. Some of them were like, I had to study more than a number of my peers.
Mm-hmm.
I studied really, really hard, and I kicked butt that freshman year. But I also realized, like, okay, I do have to study a little harder than
Mm-hmm.
some of the other people that I'm with, and that was very humbling. But also, it was once again like a chance to prove to myself that I could do it. And at the end of the year, I kind of proved to myself, okay, I'm definitely not the smartest person here. And that's good to know. And but I also know the superpower that I have when I
Yeah.
apply myself, which is what it
Yeah. Yeah.
taught me.
And entrepreneurship is always grit and
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah.
And the grit part is a huge, huge part. And so
Yeah.
you got that
Yeah.
that very early on.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So at Carnegie Mellon, you're in this super high pressured environment. Um, and clearly that forged you to be the entrepreneur you are today. In terms of you and Daina
Hmm.
then deciding to start Bold Metrics, like how did that happen? Like what year was that in your
Yeah.
marriage that you
Yeah.
guys decided, hey, we're going to be entrepreneurs
Yeah.
together too?
Yeah. Well, right away we got married and started the company.
Okay, so literally right away.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Like,
we knew we were going to do that.
yeah.
And yeah, I was
And when did you guys get married?
2012.
Okay, 2012.
Yeah, August
Got it.
2012.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And so I, after Carnegie Mellon, I was at like a bit of a crossroads. This is another part of my journey you might not even know, and a lot of people don't know. And I actually felt like I was such a social person, and I liked storytelling, and I liked the idea of like big visions. And I was getting job offers from companies that were going to put me in a big company where I would be a software engineer for
Mhm.
that big company. And it'd be a high paying job, but it like just didn't feel right. And
Yeah.
I can remember telling my dad, we were in Sea Ranch, a beautiful place on the California coast. And I remember telling my dad, hey, I'm going to turn down all the job offers
Mhm.
that I got.
Yeah.
And he was like, but you just went, I did my undergrad. I also did my I also did grad
At this
school.
point, your parents are used to being surprised.
I
by
guess
you.
so. Yeah. I also did grad school at Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I need something to, uh, to do that's different so that I'm not stuck as a computer programmer, because I just know I have a bigger purpose in that. And I need the time to find that.
Right.
And I asked him like a totally out of the blue thing, which is he went to high school with a guy named Walter Parks, who is one of the main producers at DreamWorks. He did American Beauty and Gladiator. And
Okay.
I said, is there any chance you can ping Walter and see if he can find something for me at DreamWorks?
Mhm.
Can just be for the summer.
Right.
But I want to do something totally different so I can kind of free my mind and think about a different path for myself. My dad's like, I haven't talked to Walter in a long time. Let me see. But like they were very close friends. So Walter said yes. And I actually went from having a lot of job offers at big software companies
Mm-hmm.
to moving to LA and working as an unpaid intern at DreamWorks
Okay.
on the Universal lot,
Wow.
story department. Um, and I did that, and it was this weird thing. I just had this feeling that I needed to take a different path to find the actual path I was supposed to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And the DreamWorks thing was totally fascinating, very different from anything I've ever
Yeah.
done. I read screenplays for 3 to 4 hours a day. I delivered screenplays to creative execs around the office.
Wow.
And then through that, I was living with my cousins in LA at the time, and they had rented a house in Santa Barbara. And they said, "Hey, Morgan, the guy that owns this house is like your age.
Right.
He worked for the software company that did really well. You got to come and meet him." And I met him, a guy named Graham Farrar, who was with a company called Software.com, which was a very successful company in the late 90s. And the founders of that company went to start a company that at the time was called Rincon Networks, and then changed the name to Sonos.
Mhm.
And Graham said, "Hey, I know you're doing this stuff at DreamWorks now. Gosh, I think you could be a really interesting fit at Sonos. Would you
Right.
consider working for Sonos?" And I thought, maybe this is that path I'm supposed to be on.
Yeah.
I said to him, "Hey, I'm interested, but I'm not going to be a programmer for you.
Yeah.
I need to do something else." He said, "Actually, we have a sales engineer position. It's kind of a combination where you're able to help sell our product, but speak to it at a very technical level." And so I went in to interview with Sonos, and Tom may or may not be okay with me telling this story, but it'll be fine because Tom Cullen, one of the founders of Sonos, wonderful guy, major mentor to me, incredibly private person. So he doesn't like stories being shared, but I'll share this one anyways.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he probably won't watch this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And
but
if he does,
if he does,
it's
he'll
all in good-
appreciate it.
it's
He'll
all in good-
appreciate it.
good
So
intent.
I interviewed with multiple people at Sonos. The interviews went great. And then they said, now we need you to talk to one of the founders.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get into a room kind of like this with Tom, and I'm thinking, this is going to go great.
Mhm.
Everyone here I really connect with. It feels like a really good role for me. And Tom walks in. He doesn't even sit down. He shakes my hand and he goes, "Hey, I don't know how much time I'm going to spend with you because, I don't know what we're doing here." I was like, "I'm sorry, was there some confusion?" He goes, "Yeah, this is for a sales engineer job, and you're a computer programmer. So I don't know why we would think you'd be a good fit for this job. I don't think you took any business classes. You don't have any experience with this. Also, you're in LA, and the job's in Boston.
Mm.
So I'm pretty busy. I just don't think this makes sense." And
That's a tough way to start.
yeah, and I just said to him, I just kind of let him have it, and I said, "You don't even know me."
Right.
I said, "Who are you to say that when you don't even know who I am? Why don't you sit down? Why don't we talk and let's see? Because I think I could do a great job, and this is really the type of opportunity I've been looking for."
Wow.
And
Good on you for being
We-
that bold.
we sat down and we talked, and I don't think it went well. I was saying things and trying to explain myself and looking at his facial expression and body language like it wasn't landing, and he was
Right.
kind of like, "Yeah, I hear you saying that. Okay." And then he left, and he's like, "Okay, good to meet you," and
Right.
just walked out. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, I'm definitely not getting the
Right.
job."
You're
And
not getting that.
and Chris Fowler, who is the person who had brought me in to interview, British guy, really tall British guy, he opens the door to the room and he goes, "Wow." I said, "Yeah, I don't know what happened." And he said, "Tom really liked you."
That's so funny.
I said, "Oh my God." And yeah, that started the journey at Sonos. And
Right.
really at Sonos, this is where if you look at kind of our early thesis around bold metrics,
Mhm.
what the founders had said early on is, we are not building a company to sell speakers, to make money, to become a billion-dollar company. They did all that actually, but they said, we're doing this because for us, we want to foundationally change the way people listen to music.
Mhm.
And the KPIs we're going to look at are not going to be how much revenue we do, but how much more music people listen to
Mhm.
when they have Sonos in their home.
Mhm.
And that was our guiding light at Sonos. And I was very inspired by that. But being there and being a part of the organization, I ended up running Sonos International, starting Sonos in Asia, Australia, Latin America, Canada, traveling over the world. Totally fascinating stuff, but I was doing one part of that business. And I was very inspired of being able to use technology to foundationally change the way people do things. And Daina was doing her PhD at UCLA at the time, and we were talking about this, and we both really had the same vision and felt like we kind of had a similar purpose in life of, being able to use technology not to create a billion-dollar business and, be a successful software founders. It was really about like, how do we change technology, use technology to change the way that people do things and make an impact in the world. And that was really a lot of our inspiration came from a lot of the early kind of founder vision that I got from Sonos.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a really cool story. So with what I'm working on now, part of the reason that I wanted to have you on is your AI powered newsletter,
Yes.
AI powered engineering newsletter, and you've become, not surprisingly, given the background you just outlined, an early pioneer of like the best AI powered engineering techniques. So, I'm operating under this thesis, as you know, with Love Conquers Fear, that humanity has the next 10 to 15 years to make it to what I'm calling the age of abundance for all.
Yeah.
And I'm confident we're going to make it. I think there's going to be some real disruption, but I'm confident we're going to make it. But maybe we could just start with why you started this newsletter and what have been the most mind-blowing moments for you on this journey? Because as we're recording this, it's been just over 1,000 days since the launch of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't even hit the 3-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's
in baseball, the player is still running to first.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And the exponential curve underway is unlike any I've seen in my career.
Yeah.
And I've been programming, since I was 7 years old, since 1979, and for me, that's given me the ability, and I'm sure you have the same ability to kind of see where the puck is going. I remember when, we're talking about 110 baud modem.
Sure.
I knew that they were going to get way, way, way faster.
Yep. I started with 1,200 baud, which now feels fast.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And my first printer, I knew it was going to get way, way better.
Yeah.
My first digital camera, I knew it was going to get way better. I was actually debating with my brother-in-law who went to CMU.
Yeah.
And his name's Stu, and he was arguing with me, even though he's been a technologist for so long, and I love Stu, like he's brilliant, but he was arguing with me on like that digital cameras were not going to replace traditional cameras.
Sure.
I was like, Stu, come on, you've been a technologist this whole time, you know where this is going to go.
Yeah.
And now it's like this is pretty much the only camera I have. Is my phone.
Yeah.
And, yes, there is some trade-off, but, we're recording these on high-quality cameras, but they're all digital.
Yes.
Exactly. So, I mean, you can still get the nice digital setup for when it really, really matters. But, we're at the beginning of this curve, and you've gone all in with AI-powered engineering. So, I'm just curious, like, what moments have been mind-blowing for you in the past 2.5 years?
Yeah, so many. And yeah, the reason why I use the term AI-powered engineering is that I see, as an engineer, I don't see engineering going away or the process of software engineering going away. And
I 100% agree with you.
I think there's a massive bifurcation, and it's why I don't call it vibe coding. And I don't have a problem with vibe coding. We can talk about vibe coding and the role it plays in the world and the role I think it will continue to play in the world. But that's different from AI-powered engineering. AI-powered engineering is engineers that write code, typically have a background, usually like a computer science degree or some formal training in engineering, not necessarily just like a 3-month coding school, which is also a great and powerful thing. So not to put that down at all.
Right.
It's a different path doing a 4-year degree in computer science or computer engineering than it is doing a 3-month boot camp in it. Both can lead to writing and building software, which is a wonderful and magical thing I think that everyone should do in their lives, no matter what they do, because it's such a powerful thing.
Of course.
But different paths. And what I think we have now, when it comes to AI making an impact on engineering is, what I've called AI-powered engineering. I put the newsletter on AI-poweredengineering.com, and it's because I see AI helping engineers do what they do better and
Hmm.
automate away some of the things that they shouldn't have to do, so they're using their brain and their own abilities to their best potential.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and something I talk with our engineering team about, and I talk about in interviews, like when I'm interviewing engineers as we bring more people onto our team, I always say that I see engineering in a lot of ways as a creative endeavor.
Hmm.
It's not
It
that,
absolutely is.
and I said I never will hear as a CTO and as an engineering leader, I will never say, okay, we need you to do this and do it in this way and have it done in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Like, I'll never do that.
Right.
Never want anyone to work in that environment, because I think that strips away what we can do with our brain that we will always be able to do better than AI with our brain. That
Hmm.
creative thought of going like, "Oh, interesting. Here's a problem I need to solve. Oh, there's a lot of different ways to solve it. Oh, here's an experiment I run before I solve it," because I think
Hmm.
scientific method plays a role in engineering as well. And so AI-powered engineering is really something that has encompassed the impact that AI has on how we write code and build software as engineers.
Hmm.
And kind of at the core part of that stack and a core part of this transformation really is Cursor and, adding something as simple as an AI panel to an IDE, something that
Hmm.
we've been using forever to write code.
We should define what cursor is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Cursor and a little bit of the history of it, for quite a while, VS Code has been like the standard IDE, and IDE integrated development environment is essentially what you're writing code in.
Hmm.
And it's the big win mostly, which is kind of wild that this is where we're at, because like I said, I still feel like we're living in the past in a lot of ways, but the IDE gives you really nice color coding in the language that you're using,
Hmm.
and autocomplete. So if you're using a certain method or something like that, you can start typing it and it'll show in gray the rest of the method call it thinks you're going to write. Because as a software engineer, you don't necessarily have to write things that you already know. You
Right.
can have it autocomplete for you. That's mostly been what IDEs have been used for, along with for compiled languages, actually compiling and running. And those can be all connected together.
Hmm.
And what the team at Cursor did is they forked VS Code. And for those who don't know what that means essentially just taking the code for VS Code and creating another version of it that you can build on top of.
Right. Yeah, I think forking, that term came out of GitHub
Yes,
originally.
exactly. Yeah. And so they forked VS Code, and essentially the thing that stupefies some people, but actually isn't that surprising because of how powerful it is they added a panel to the right side that you can open that is an AI panel that allows an AI model, typically, it started out as ChatGPT, and typically now most people are using Anthropic has kind of become the standard for coding. And so people are using
Hmm.
Claude, and it was really Claude 3.5 Sonnet that put Anthropic on the map and became kind of the go-to model within Cursor,
Yeah.
but allows you to have a model look at your code, understand your code, make suggestions. And the power of that for engineers is that the thing that's very hard to keep up with, that you and I have both lived actually having done this for a long time, because it's even become easier now, but it was much harder a long time ago,
Hmm.
is the fact that libraries change over time.
Hmm.
The way you call those libraries changes. Some that were completely deprecated and don't exist anymore.
Hmm.
So you may have a pattern where you're like, oh yeah, when I read an Excel file, I use this library to read the Excel file. I
Right.
load it into a pandas data frame and I access pandas doing this and this. And that syntax may change. There may be a better way to do that. There may be faster ways to store tabular data like that.
Yeah.
And the old way of doing it was originally, oh, I'm going to read books and learn. Oh, there's a new book that came out about, handling tabular data in Python. I'm going to get that book. And that evolved to, oh, now there's YouTube channels and I can watch somebody talk to me on YouTube about, oh, hey, if you thought pandas is cool, check out this new library for reading in tabular data.
Right.
And the next evolution of that is you're not reading the book, you're not watching the YouTube video, you're doing it in real time, and you essentially have an agent sitting next to you that knows everything up to the minute, essentially, of how things change.
Right.
Best practices learned from code being written by everyone all over the world, and you're benefiting from that knowledge. And from that, you're becoming a better engineer both by learning, by writing better and more robust code, and by doing the one thing that I think has wasted the most engineering time, and what was said to me during engineering school and was true for a very long time, which is that 99% of coding is debugging.
Right.
And debugging is, while it is problem solving and it is impactful,
Yeah.
I believe is a great misuse of the superpower we have with the human brain.
Yeah, I mean, it's a barrier to being creative.
Yes,
And I
exactly.
mean, I don't know if this is true for you. I imagine it was, but I used to dream in code.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of times
Yeah.
it was because I was debugging. Like
Exactly.
I had a
Yeah.
problem where it was like so frustrating.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've got to go to sleep because I got to go to school. I don't want to go to school, but I've got
Yeah.
to go to school. And I would dream about it, and I would have
Yes.
the answer in the morning.
Yeah.
And I would be like, okay, I know what it is. I'd go, and I've got to do this real quick. But, Mom, I'm going to skip breakfast.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I learned that in college. In college, I remember I was up like really late. I'm
Yeah.
like delusional. I'm drinking Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
And I couldn't solve the problem. And I went to bed really angry about it.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the morning and I had dreamed about it. And I was like, oh, here's the solution. I woke up,
Right.
I was so excited to try it. But that is a waste of our brain, and computers already can do a much better job debugging code
Yeah.
than we can for most scenarios. There's still some really challenging esoteric stuff.
Yeah.
If you're working on, quantum computing software to work with new chips that are pushing the limit of what you can do with qubits, like, okay,
Right.
maybe the human brain can still be used for the debugging of that. But for general stuff that most people are doing every day with coding, that can be handled by AI.
Yeah.
And then you can continue to focus on the really creative stuff.
Yeah.
you can do.
Exactly. Yeah. Use our beautiful brains
Yeah,
for creativity.
Exactly.
So it sounds like Cursor was a real epiphany moment for you.
For everybody.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Yeah.
It seemed so simple. A lot of people even still say, oh, they didn't do anything special. Like, it's a fork of VS Code. They took
Yeah.
existing code. It's a foundational shift in how software is written, without a
Right.
shadow of a doubt. And it's the integration of, foundational models into the way that we write and debug code.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the best businesses, honestly, are very simple ideas,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean that they can be implemented easily.
Correct.
There's
Yes.
there's a lot that
Yeah.
goes behind the scenes at
Mhm.
Cursor to make it work.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's but it should be easy to be explained.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very easy for me to explain Bizarre Voice, but I was
Mhm.
like, look, what I'm explaining to you is the tip of the iceberg in terms of what actually makes this work.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of annoying, and one of those annoying things back in the past, but we used the same iceberg slide that everybody used in sales
Sure.
back
Yeah.
then to
Yeah.
show like the tip of the iceberg and all the stuff that made Bizarre Voice work. But it was true. I mean, that was why when we started Bizarre Voice, there were only 3 customers in the entire, or there were only 3 retailers rather in the entire United States who had customer reviews. And it's because they were afraid to put it on their site in terms of new retailers getting approval, because are they really going to embrace the voice of the negative customer? And B, they needed to staff up for the moderation to make sure nothing profane or racist or sexist posted.
Sure.
Because imagine if you're Walmart and some
Yeah.
horrible sexist thing
Yeah.
just on
Yeah.
a product page,
Yeah.
and you're now all of a sudden in the news for that.
Yeah.
I remember when the head of PR for all of Walmart called me while I was in an executive team offsite at Bizarre Voice, and she said, I want you to know we're the most talked about person, place, or thing in the United States except for the president.
Wild.
And if you make one mistake when you launch customer reviews on Walmart, you are fired immediately. And I went back to the offsite and I told the team, I was like, hey, we need to triple up on moderation here. Because if we get fired by Walmart, I'm pretty sure the business is just over.
Yeah.
Fortunately we didn't, and we did
Yeah.
a good job. But
Yeah.
it was one of those moments where it was pretty intense.
It's incredible to think of an e-commerce world without ratings and reviews.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is now. I mean, now Bizarre Voice has I think 16,000 customers in 50 international languages, and it's all over the
And
world.
most people don't realize that they're like, people are so used to ratings and reviews being on websites, they
Yeah.
don't realize that that was like pioneered by Bizarre Voice and is still what's powering it on pretty much every
Yeah.
website there.
But I mean, it's similar to Bold Metrics. It's like the Intel Inside type of
Yes,
thing.
that's what I've
You know,
always said,
nobody
yeah.
really knows the brand unless they're
Yeah.
would it be a buyer of Bizarre Voice, which
Yeah.
are like VPs of e-commerce and
Yep.
CMOs and
Yep.
head of merchandising, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So getting back to AI powered engineering,
Yeah.
what were some of the other moments where you're like, oh man, this really does change everything that I've done?
Yeah, I mean, this year was a very pivotal one, I think, for AI-powered engineering as a whole, because with Cursor coming out, so Cursor came out, and then Windsurf came out also as a fork of VS Code and started competing against Cursor. Cursor was already pretty far ahead and matches with the thesis of Brian Kim from Entries and Horrors has talked about this idea of momentum as a moat. And Cursor just got amazing momentum, had a ton of users. And so Windsurf was able to get a chunk of those, but Cursor already had a lot of people using it at that point in time. And what's so fascinating about it is, who was left behind is Microsoft with VS Code and with GitHub Copilot.
Yeah.
And I was at GitHub Universe last year and watching Microsoft and brilliant people at Microsoft. So no knock on Microsoft here. It's tricky when you're the Titanic and you're competing against somebody on a speedboat, and so those are tricky moves to make. But they added multimodal to GitHub Copilot. But that was the big announcement at GitHub Universe last year, and I was in the room when they announced it.
Right.
And I remember thinking, whoa, they're so far behind.
Right, exactly.
Holy
You're like, yeah,
moly.
welcome to.
That's the big announcement.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
believe it. I thought it would be something much more foundational.
Right.
That was a trivial ad, essentially. Powerful ad, but trivial ad. The real big shift that happened this year that I don't think anyone thought would be the shift, and this is kind of a misunderstood thing about foundational models when they're used in coding, is that just because you select a model from a drop-down within a program, it doesn't mean that those are all the same. Like you're calling it through an API, you're calling it with a different set of configurations and parameters and all kinds of things. I won't get into the super low level details of it, but it's not the same. So when I select Claude 3.5 Sonnet in Cursor, I'm not necessarily getting the exact same response and the exact same type of analysis that I would if I select Claude 3.5 Sonnet in GitHub Copilot, or if I select Claude 3.5 Sonnet in whatever other software that I use.
All right.
And so what Anthropic did that was kind of very smart all across two vectors is they introduced something in April of this year called Claude Code, which was the ability to leverage Claude as a CLI, which is command line interface, which as a lot of developers, and this is another place where we are living in the past. We're going to feel like dinosaurs. But I took a Unix class when I was like 13 years old with a good friend of mine, Zaven, who we said at the time we were learning Unix and we were learning Unix commands, and we thought, boy, this is probably going to be irrelevant in like 5 years.
Right.
And it's like, no. Still today when you're writing code, still today when you're committing to GitHub, like you're in the command line. And so developers,
and Linux is the foundation of most of the internet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like Mac OS, I always tell people you're running on. You open up a terminal, there it is.
The Neil Stephenson book In the Beginning was the command line.
Yeah.
Amazing book. You can get it for free online.
Snow Crash is like my all-time favorite book.
Yeah, I mean he's one of my favorite authors. I'm actually reading 70s right now,
That's a great
which
book.
I haven't read
cool.
until now.
Yeah.
But In the Beginning was a command line. He predicted that Linux would win over Microsoft on the internet. And he was right. So it was really amazing vision.
Yeah. Most people don't realize that like Mac OS has this beautiful window manager called Aqua that sits on top of, the most robust, powerful operating system of all time that we still use every day. And so Claude introduced Claude Code, which was the ability to work agentically with a coding agent. And that was essentially the evolution of this might not be very well known, actually. And it was, and here's a part of it that is known by some, but should be known by more, which is there was a company called Klein which is still a company.
How do you spell it?
CLINE.
Oh, like the vineyard,
Yes.
actually,
Yes.
because we're pretty close to Napa right
yeah.
now. Sure.
Yeah.
Klein Vineyards. That was always a pit stop.
Oh, yeah.
Deborah and I were driving up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if it was named. Now I wonder why it was named that.
Yeah.
So Klein essentially was the first person or the first company to come up with this idea of agent mode.
Mhm.
So rather than needing to continually ask an LLM a question when you're coding, you could actually use it in an agent mode where you would then do like agentic coding and agentic code assistance.
Mhm.
And they came up with that. That was a VS Code extension. And if someone from Klein is watching this and I'm misrepresenting it, definitely feel free to correct it.
Right.
Somewhere, this is the best of my knowledge of it, but I want to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
They-
Maybe we'll have them on.
They're
They can
a
correct
phenomenal
correct, yeah,
company.
yeah.
Yeah. And they just raised a round led by Emergence.
Yeah.
And they came up with that concept of rather than if you're using, AI within your coding journey, rather than prompting back and forth and you essentially being the human agent, actually doing it agentically. And that really took off. Cursor saw that and added agent mode. And that's what Cursor now, when you open up the IDE, it defaults to agent mode because that's so popular.
Yeah.
Be careful, you have to have some guardrails in agent mode. And
Yeah.
this is something we'll probably talk about a little later, but is some of the challenges with vibe coding today is that you have a lot of stuff running in agent mode. But that took off. Anthropic saw that. And so then they released Claude Code, which is their AI coding agent that lives within the CLI. And that was the tipping point.
Yeah.
That is like far and beyond changed the way that software is built globally. Anthropic is at the core of that, and Claude Code. And this is why, we're talking about, you were saying like, we're only 1,000 days into ChatGPT.
That's right.
April is when that came out.
Yeah.
April is really when there was a tipping point for AI powered engineering.
Yeah.
We're so early.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was actually my co-founder and CTO, Brian Jacob at Data.World, which now ServiceNow owns.
Yeah.
Where when Claude Code came out, because Brian is a brilliant CTO, he immediately was like, okay, this changes everything.
Yes.
And honestly, the team at Data.World has now become more like conductors of an orchestra.
Exactly.
In terms of these AI agents, and they're able to express a lot more creativity as a result of that.
Yeah.
So let me get you to play futurist for a moment,
Sure.
because you've been doing tech for a long time, like me. Another 1,000 days.
Yeah.
Where are we at with AI powered engineering? 1,000 days from now.
Yeah. I mean, we won't see the level of progress that we have seen in the last 1,000 days because there's been so much that's happened, right? So I think you do have some leveling off in some ways.
Digestion period, you're saying? Or
Not necessarily, just in that a lot of the foundation has now been built. So I think the core change is like, oh, I as a software engineer am not just going to sit and write code line by line. I'm going to now use an AI agent to assist in that process. And I think that foundational shift now lives on for a very long time, and you don't have anything that big that happens in the next 1,000 days. What happens in the next 1,000 days is that the two key areas that I see for like very, very necessary improvement on foundational models that are very, very tricky to solve are hallucinations and memory. Right. And so right now we still have relatively limited context windows. Like GPT-5 is like 128,000 token context window. Gemini and Claude both came out with 1 million token context windows. Those are still relatively small when you're looking at very large production code bases. So I see probably a lot of innovation, particularly when you look at an impact on AI coding on context window side and memory and persistence. And then the other is hallucinations, which is probably the hardest problem of all to solve.
Because of the way these LLMs actually work.
Because
that's almost like we need a paradigm shift in the way they work. Because the creative potential of them is the reason why they hallucinate.
Yes,
and the creative potential is amazing. I mean, like my ability to brainstorm with an AI is amazing, because what a lot of people most people have not actually used ChatGPT even
Yeah.
today
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of
in the
course.
world.
Yeah.
And out of the
Yeah.
700 million people that have ever tried it once, only 10% of them use it daily.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And so you've got the majority of the world not using them, but I implore people to use it because you have all of humanity's content, whether it's, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching, or, any scientific literature through the ages, any historical records, etc., in every single language that is of
Yes.
any scale in the world. And being able to talk to it like you would talk to a human being,
Yeah.
and get answers. I'll give you an example. Like when we were in Japan last year, I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian for 15 years now. It's a tricky diet in Japan, believe it or not.
Yes.
Japan, like they'll sneak bacon into Brussels sprouts or something. And so I'm serious about my diet. There's a lot of reasons why I do it. And, the best example I could give of anybody that's listening to this right now or watching this is that I have better biomarkers at age 53 than I did at 40. Better cholesterol, better resting heart rate, better blood pressure. But anyway, so I'm in Japan, and I want to book one of these 10 restaurants. And so I asked ChatGPT to prepare a report. This is a year ago. This would be much easier to prepare a report looking at all the reviews written by Japanese customer in Japanese and look for the common patterns that would make them suitable for vegetarians and why, and then stack rank it for me and include excerpts of those reviews, but do it in English.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that's like, took maybe, 30 minutes of research for something that I literally would not be able to do. Like in the past, I would have had to hire a Japanese translator to give me that, or I would have needed to just put all my faith in a concierge to help me navigate that. And most people aren't vegetarian. And so that concierge would probably be like, oh, I don't even, I want to really be doing this. And like, why doesn't this guy just eat fish? Is there Japan, or whatever they'd be thinking. And then, this year we went back to Japan. We love Japan. And you can be in any esoteric temple and take a photo of, Zen Buddhist art and immediately get the background on it. Or you can do it with video now too. You can just take a video of the whole site and get it to explain everything to you. And so if people aren't using these just as like a virtual travel agent, they're missing out. But you've got to think differently, because it's the first time in human history where you can now talk to humanity's content archive throughout the ages. Which is incredible.
It's such an interesting example you gave, because this is how my dad ended up really becoming a heavy user of ChatGPT. He also fell in love with Japan. Goes to Japan 2 or 3 times a year, and him and I go to Japan together every year. It's our father-son
very cool
pilgrimage, and we go to a different part of Japan. And through his Japan trips, he became very fascinated in collecting Japanese scrolls. He's older, kind of semi-retirement. Everyone picks up a hobby. He picked up that as a hobby, and he started like finding these like scroll shops in Kyoto and other places, and coming back with lots of scrolls. He now has a lot of scrolls. And what he finds very interesting about it is that those scrolls contain history. Some of them are Japanese scrolls, some of them turn out to be Chinese scrolls, but of a time where like not as much is documented. And some of these are revealing stories of, a totally different period that really hasn't necessarily been documented in these particular experiences. But he started using ChatGPT maybe 800 days ago, very early with ChatGPT, to take photographs of the scrolls and get translations of the Japanese text coupled with the image, coupled with when it might be from, to understand the story. And for him, it totally enriched that journey. And when we go to Japan, it's like anytime we go to a temple or a shrine, he's taking pictures and sending it to ChatGPT. And so that's the exact experience where the only way that you would experience that 2 years ago really is if you maybe like did a Google search, tried to find the shrine, and then you'd read a couple paragraphs on Wikipedia about it. But you're not translating something that you find chiseled on the side of the wood at the shrine that has never really been documented before.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a fascinating time, and it's why I am confident that we're going to make it to this age of abundance for all. That we are manifesting a better world right now. And it's really hard for people to see because there are going to be disruptions along the way. I mean, there definitely are, there's going to be job loss. But one of the theses I've had since the beginning of this journey for me, if you go back in time to March of 2023, 4 months after ChatGPT launched, there was a moratorium call where Elon Musk and 37,000 people said, shut it down. Do not develop any more powerful than this, a 6-month pause. And I thought it was totally ridiculous because if you look at the arc of human history, we've always been technology driven, starting with the discovery of fire. And it would be like me telling you, if I had a tribe back then, like, hey, I've discovered fire. No, I'm not going to give you fire. So I'm like, this just fights human nature. Like, we always want to create easier lives and better lives. And one of the things that I proposed back then, and why I thought the moratorium call was ridiculous, was on this podcast called Austin Next, where Worley and I were jamming. He was on an episode of this podcast. You're going to love that episode.
Cool.
And we were jamming on that episode, and we found out we had a lot in common, that we saw a future of billions of personalized services and products that could not be imagined today. Because the barrier to creativity was just being shattered right in front of our eyes. And that's even more true right now. Like, you and I have been talking about that. I think capitalistically, the next 5 years are the most amazing years of capitalism in human history.
The amount of opportunities are staggering. And I very confidently believe that more jobs will be created than lost.
I agree with you. I just think the disruption has people concerned. But here's the thing for anybody watching this or listening to this. Everything is going to be remade around AI. So one thing that I don't want people to assume, and seeing two kind of tech guys talk about this, is that I'm talking about plumbing's going to be remade. Electrical, electricians, that whole industry is going to be remade. Every single thing you can think of, retail, is going to be remade to be AI powered. And the reason that I want to emphasize that is that I think you and I should talk about, just briefly, like what someone should do watching this that is not technology centered at all now. They're just, let's just say that they're a great creative writer and they've been writing for their whole life, or they're a great artist, but they don't really like to be on the computer that much, or they are, a plumber or electrician, and they're like, I don't really understand why these guys are talking about cursor and all this stuff. I don't, what advice would you have to them on getting started?
Great question.
What would you say are the top three
first
things
off, I believe we as humans love experimenting with things. And sometimes there can be like a fear of experimenting because you're going into an area of unknown. And we as humans are biased to fear the unknown. This ties into spirituality stuff as well, right? And I think it comes down to experimenting. And I usually recommend that people experiment with multiple forms of LLMs because they are very different. And it's definitely important for me to talk about a little bit about Perplexity in our conversation, because Perplexity has foundationally changed my life and changed our company. Bold Metrics is one of the first companies to go Comet wide for the entire company. So I actually worked with Perplexity to get Comet invites to Perplexity Comet, their AI powered browser for every single person in our company.
Comet. I have that. I have their browser too.
And Comet is unbelievably powerful, and I would recommend that honestly, when people ask me, hey, I haven't really gotten that into ChatGPT, what can I do to get started? I actually recommend people start with either Perplexity Comet or a company called the Browser Company, makes a browser called DIA. They were just acquired by Atlassian, but that browser is only going to get better. Those are like
How do you spell it? DIA?
DIA.
Yep.
Yeah, like day in Spanish.
Yep.
And
I haven't used DIA, but I use
Dia's
Comet.
phenomenal. Josh and Hirsch are the founders of the company. Actually, I went through a lean startup machine with early before Bold Metrics. I got to know those guys early in their journey. Brilliant guys, very passionate product people. They built something very special. Perplexity has as well with Comet. And I believe actually that the starting point for a lot of people, if they haven't jumped in necessarily with ChatGPT, because everybody pushes people, well, start with ChatGPT, use that. I actually think people should start with AI-powered browsers, actually, if they haven't dipped their toe in the water yet.
Very good.
Start with Comet or start with DIA. And here's a really great example of a use case that you can do in both. I open up my email and just say, unsubscribe me from stuff where I haven't, it looks like a newsletter and I haven't clicked to open any of them the last 3 times they've sent it. And it can go through your Gmail and do that. Or I can say, I want to take a log of all of the flights that I've taken, and I want to make sure that I've gotten the miles credited properly. Can you go through my email and look at all my past flights, and then let's log into American Airlines or United and review this? And it can agentically do these things for you. And so that's one of the easiest, like low-hanging fruits to use LLMs in a way that you already have an existing workflow, because everybody that uses the internet today uses it as uses it through a browser in most cases. And what the CEO of Perplexity talks about a lot is the browser being like the OS of the internet. And so, well, what would the OS of the internet have today that makes it unique? It would definitely have an AI assistant and be AI powered and have an agentic piece to it. So that I always recommend. And Perplexity is also a very interesting LLM for people that want to avoid hallucinations, because Perplexity, what makes it different from a foundational modeling standpoint from Claude or from ChatGPT or from Gemini, is that there has to be very specific high trust sources for essentially every sentence that is provided back as a response. And that's why Perplexity really labels itself as a discovery engine, and is very focused on it. It was really inspired. If you've heard any talks with Arvind, the CEO, he talks about being inspired by like academic papers and needing to have sources to back up everything you say. And so I think Perplexity is a very important part of the journey, because I see people sometimes get turned off by LLMs because their first experiences with ChatGPT has some weird hallucinations and they go, oh, now I don't trust this. And so using different models, try Perplexity, try ChatGPT. And then, honestly, I think the path my dad took was such a good one. When you're going to use ChatGPT, like, use it for something that you would actually use it for. Don't just ask it silly questions to see how it works as your like kind of fun personal assistant, but you're like, it's more novelty. Give it a real use case. And so I say for a lot of people, start with your hobby. Okay. So like for my dad, he's into scrolls, and it's like, oh, cool. You can take a picture of the scroll and get all this information. If you're into mountain biking, try plugging in a lot of things related to mountain biking, including photographs, including text, and use it for something that's not a novelty purpose, but it's actually something applicable in your own life.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's the thing that people will be astounded by when they start to use it, is that no matter what you're into, it could be the most esoteric, like collectible, like for your dad, scrolls, but it could be whatever. I mean, be Pokemon or, Pokemon's not that esoteric, but it could be, I have these old Japanese toys from when I was like 8 or 10 years old, and it was based on a Japanese program from back then. And I'm not that into it, so I can't remember the name of it right now. But our youngest daughter's like super into anime, and I could just go to town on that all day long.
Exactly.
I mean, I've gotten super into ancient spirituality and the unification of all things. The what do they have in common? Like, what does the Tao Te Ching have in common with the Gita? Has in common with Kabbalah, which came out of early Judaism? Has in common with ancient Christian mysticism, Buddhism, etc. and they have a lot in common,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Like,
Yeah.
and so I've done all types of deep research reports on that, and then I turned to the source material itself. Like I recently read the Gita and read the Tao Te
Oh,
Ching,
wow. Yeah.
directly.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun. Like, for me, I would say that my rate of learning has gone exponential in the past
Yes.
couple of
Yes.
years, because
Yeah.
anything I'm curious about or anything I hear about, which I don't know anything about, which kind of sparks like a little bit of that. I think I should know something about that. I just go to ChatGPT or to Claude or to
Yes.
Gemini, and I start
Yeah.
to learn about it.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, people could look at us and say, oh, well, they're, successful tech entrepreneurs. But here's the thing. These things cost $20 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
Perplexity is $20 a month.
Yeah.
Like anybody watching this,
And that's for the pro version. You
probably
can use
has
it for
a
free,
Netflix
actually.
subscription.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You could use it.
You can also
for
use it for free. to
Exactly.
start.
And you can use ChatGPT for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, these things are progressing so fast that free is pretty damn good.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's a really good point. But it will be, paying $20 a month for like Perplexity or for ChatGPT or for Claude will be way more valuable to you than a Netflix subscription if you want to invest in your future.
Yeah.
To
I mean, think of the value proposition.
Yeah.
If you were to talk to anybody 10 years ago about this, they would tell you you're crazy. If you said $20 a month, all of the knowledge in the world, from scientific knowledge to
Yeah.
academic knowledge to really deep, every detail of Japanese anime. You could ask it about a specific episode of a specific season and a detail and pass it a photo of it. It could tell you about that.
Yeah.
All the knowledge in the world. You can ask it questions for as long as you want. It remembers stuff. It
Right.
personalizes to you.
Yeah.
And it's $20 a month.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, you can do it in any language.
Yeah. Oh, and you can do it on this thing that you put in your pocket.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. It doesn't matter if you're Japanese. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're Chinese.
Yeah.
You can do it anywhere.
Yes.
And you can do it across languages,
Yeah.
which is part of the Babelfish future, right?
Yeah.
It was in Hitchhiker's Guide. That just
Yes.
it just blows my mind sometimes
Yeah.
to think about what I'm actually doing
Yeah.
with it.
I think you hit on something very important though, which is that I think a lot of people when they ask me a similar question that you asked me, like, oh, how do I get started? They assume I'm going to say, okay, you should start by writing some code and build some simple
Right,
software.
right.
And I never recommend that because maybe people will get there in their journey, maybe they won't. I don't know. It really is what you said, I think, is the key, is that we are living in a time where I do think you owe it to yourself to be able to learn more and at a faster pace than ever before because that's more accessible.
Yeah.
And we as humans are naturally curious. And now you're able to actually quench that like curiosity thirst more so than you ever have in human history.
And literally for anything you want to do. Like if I was interested in becoming a plumber, I could go to ChatGPT and I could say, prepare a 5-week course complete with YouTube videos of walk me through how to become an advanced plumber over this 5-week course.
Yeah.
And it would just do that.
Yeah. I'm doing that with woodworking. I'm like learning woodworking for the first time. And I'm doing it all with ChatGPT and saying, let's come up with some basic projects. And the really neat thing is, unlike, and this is why I say there's this evolution of like, we used to learn from books and then we learned from YouTube videos. And the change now is it's interactive because the YouTube video is better than the book. If I have a book about woodworking and I'm seeing some pictures of it, okay, that's okay. But there's steps in between I miss. YouTube, it's like, oh, now I can watch the person actually do it.
Yeah.
But with ChatGPT, I can show it, hey, I got this. I think it's leveled. Is this the way it's supposed to be? Here's a picture of it. And it can say, nah, it looks like you have to actually turn it. Now I actually have the interactivity of having like intelligence, like an agent helping me as I learn. And so you're like learning by doing rather than learning by reading, learning by watching. And now we're in the phase of learning by doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the age of abundance for all, part of the way I see it happening is it's going to happen through, AI is going to lead to a cognitive labor revolution. It's already happening.
Yeah.
But it's getting more and more embodied over time through robots. And a lot of people are terrified of robots because they've seen the Terminator or,
Mhm.
the Matrix
Yeah.
movies or whatever.
Yeah. Makes great sci-fi.
Right. It makes
Yeah.
great sci-fi. That's
Yeah.
why I've been writing,
Yeah.
positive sci-fi.
Sure.
With
Yeah. Which is what Asimov was all about.
Exactly.
Especially with robots.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, when we get to nearly unlimited physical labor,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I write about in my book that's coming out next year,
Mhm.
which is Love Conquers Fear: Humanity, AI, and the Age of Abundance
Hmm.
for All, is that even countries like Chad, where they have
Mhm.
a $660 per person GDP
Mm.
versus the U.S. is around $85,800,
Mm.
you could create an oasis in Chad because you could send in an army of robots to go build all the clean water supply they need, all the electrical grid, the solar energy grid to power that, the healthcare that they need.
Mhm.
And if we can create an abundance in Chad, then we can create an oasis anywhere in the world.
Yes.
And, part of what was prophesied in ancient spirituality is this merger of heaven and earth. And whether you look at it as metaphorically or mystically, I do think that it's this lifetime where that age is upon us. And I'm just curious if you agree with that.
I do definitely agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. And you and I have talked about this a little bit. Like I have been for most of my life, well, to a point, I was very, very scientific.
Yeah,
As a
yeah.
kid, I was probably way too scientific as a kid. And then I had an experience that I'll share where that changed for me
Yeah.
because um, I never believed in any kind of afterlife. I didn't believe in souls or spirits or anything. I was like everything can be explained by science and math, and um, that was how I was until I was. This is probably 14 years old, I want to say, and I went. I went on a backpacking camp. One of the things that kind of sparked my love of backpacking for life and connection with nature in a lot of ways. And my grandmother had cancer and was not doing great, but who knew how long that she was going to live
Yeah.
for? And we had a conversation before I left on the trip, and then I didn't know. We were out back, and this was at a point in time, when I was 14. We were in the 90s. There's no cell phones. There's no email. Everything is delivered by letter. And, I would say probably like a couple days into the trip, I kind of forgot about all that stuff with family. I was deep into this. I'm with a bunch of other kids. We're backpacking. We're doing all these trips. And I was having a great time. And we had hiked out to, we were doing like a multi-day trip was one of the things we did. We'd hike out to a place. And I had like, this has never happened to me in my entire life. We're there, we're all hanging out, and I felt this incredible, deep sadness and this need to cry, like weeping cry, and it just started to come over me. And I had to leave the area, and I went and sat by this lake, and I was just crying and crying, crying. And one of the counselors came and said, "Morgan, oh my God, what is going on? Are you okay?" I said, "I don't know what's going on." I said, something must be wrong with me. I can't stop crying. I don't know what I'm crying about. And he said, did something bad happen today? Did one of the other kids say something to you? I said, no, I don't know. I can't stop crying. And it happened for like an hour. Like I probably cried like powerful, deep crying for like an hour. One of the most intense crying I've done in my life.
Right.
Very weird experience. Scary experience. I was pretty freaked out like that night and the next day. I actually thought there must be something mentally wrong with me. I must be having some kind of a mental breakdown. Like I should talk to my parents about this when I get back. I should see a therapist. Like something went wrong because the next day I felt normal again, but I couldn't stop thinking about this thing that had happened to me, this uncontrollable thing where I couldn't control my emotions. And I kind of touch when I talk about this because it's such a powerful experience. But 2 days later, I got a letter, and that was the day my grandmother had died.
My God.
And at about that exact time.
Wow.
And at that point, I thought, I don't know what all that means.
Right.
Right? I don't have an explanation for that.
Yeah.
But clearly, I cannot explain everything with science anymore. And it was really from that moment forward that I became more spiritual and started to kind of open my mind to those possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I'll share a story back with you. when Bizarre Voice went public, the stock traded up, and it was a euphoric time
I'm
because
sure.
this was, this is
Yeah.
something that I'd actually, when I was 25, I set a goal that I would found a company and take it public by the time I was 40, and I turned
Wow.
40 on the roadshow.
Wow.
And my mom, fortunately, was alive. My dad had passed away, and really missed him a lot. And she was alive to see this, her son taking a company public over $1 billion valuation,
Wow.
and, I was very, I definitely would consider myself spiritual in even back then, but I was very much kind of not trapped, but I would say very much in the world of form, meaning that, it was about capitalism for me. And like, here I am, like, taking this company public, and our company's rated the #1 place to work in Austin, et cetera, et cetera. And there were these bankers in town saying, hey, you can do a secondary IPO. You can raise more money for the company because the stock's traded up.
Oh, interesting.
And so I was meeting with them, but my mom was in the hospital, really doing poorly. Like, her cancer had gone stage 4. So I had that meeting, and then I'm driving back to the hospital. And my wife calls, Deborah, and Deborah says, your mom's dying right now. She puts me on speaker. I say my goodbyes. I've got tears streaming down my face. I'm riddled with guilt. I'm like, wow, my own mom, I missed my own mom's death because of this, desire with Bizarre Voice, so this duty, and, which is an important duty, but, what's more important than your mom passing away? And I just keep driving, with tears streaming down my face. And 5 minutes later, Deborah calls me back, and she's like, your mom's back alive.
Wow.
She's like, the doctors have no idea how this is even possible. And I get to the hospital, and she dies with me holding her hand, and Deborah holding her hand, and my sister holding her hand. And
Very powerful.
and the doctors, I mean, it was so beautiful. It was so spiritual. You could feel the energy and the presence of God, or whatever you want to call that. I call it God, but you could call it the universe or consciousness. You could feel it in the room. And the doctor said, if you don't believe in God, you should believe in God now, because we've never seen what just happened. It was just such an incredible moment. It's something I'll never forget.
Wow,
So
that's very powerful.
there's been many moments that have made me more spiritual, but that for sure was one of them.
Yeah.
And part of the suffering, I think, that we have in the world today is this dogmatic separation between spirituality, or I would say religion, really, and science. And the reality is, the more you dive into things like quantum physics, the more you find out that quantum physics and our reality and what the ancient spiritual masters, were looking at and seeing through meditation or through, it's actually been proven now more and more that they were using psychedelics to have that deep connection with source. And that's been proven in the Immortality Key, which is a great book by a friend of mine, Brian Marescu. He's actually going to be on the podcast.
Cool.
And, here we have this dogmatic separation because of, in science, it's, hey, I'm not going to believe it until you prove it to me. But then all science begins with the miracle, the Big Bang. So it's like, hey, if you accept the miracle, the Big Bang, I'll explain everything else to you. And in religion, there's all this man-made rule set that goes around it, which turns some people off for good reason. But the core of religion is spirituality, which is that knowing that happiness comes from the inside, because it's a communion with your soul.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're pretty confident we're going to make it. It sounds. I'm very confident.
I'm confident we're going to make it. And I feel there are some of us that have a greater responsibility than others.
Yeah.
I think if you know that you have the ability to help humanity at this time, and I think there's a lot of different ways to do that. I think for you and I, part of our responsibility comes from technology and how AI is used for good.
Yes.
I think for those of us with that responsibility, it is such an important time for us to deliver on the responsibility that we have. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I totally respect people like wanting to use these technologies to gain wealth. And again, the wealth creation opportunity is probably the best it's ever been over the next 5 years. Um, People have to take care of their families and et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's great. But I do want to emphasize that for people even in the chase like that feel like, hey, I've just got to grind all the time. And trust me, I've been there. I used to work till 2, 3 in the morning every single night, to prove to myself that I could be a successful capitalist and prove to myself that I could create a better outcome for the world through technology. Dedicate just a little bit of that time towards lifting up others.
Yes.
Because that you could have a huge impact. You teach someone how to fish with Perplexity or ChatGPT. You could just have a huge impact, and it's just so easy to learn.
Yes.
It really is so easy. If you can have a conversation, like we're just having a conversation, then you can talk with these systems, and they'll blow your mind. So in terms of thinking about kind of where things go from here, do you think that it's like 10 to 15 years that we have that possibility to
I think the
create
window's
that future?
I think the window's longer,
Okay.
personally. But I think the next 10 to 15 years are probably the most crucial.
Yep.
I can't help but think back to, and we were talking about this last night, I'm such a big Isaac Asimov fan,
Yeah.
and I think
And
there's
me
a
too,
lot of, I know I know we share that.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think Isaac Asimov was probably one of the most accurate futurists of our time in a lot of ways. And he was also a physicist and taught physics, and so there's the connection there as well. But his best known book, Foundation, is centers around this character Harry Seldon, who's a psychohistorian who predicts there's going to be this huge downfall and this terrible time period, and he believes that with psychohistory and what he's developing, and I don't want to give away the book because there's other stuff that happens that changes some of this, but that you could reduce the amount of time of that suffering. And I think we're in a similar place now where I think there's always the like the search for humans to end suffering. And then you look at some like the Buddhism beliefs about life being suffering and actually being okay with some of that suffering. And I think that you have a very interesting point in time now where there, you can look at things however you want to look at them, right? Some people say, this is like the darkest time in human history. But like, if you go back, like, they're pretty dark times.
All right. Sure.
There's a lot of great stuff
A
going
lot
on.
of very dark times.
Very
I mean,
dark
you
times.
talked about the Civil War earlier.
Yeah.
That was a pretty dark time.
Very dark time. There've been some very dark times. So I think that we now have the chance to, we were talking about this more last night, there is an opportunity for awakening and for a mass awakening of people to be able to embrace like the change that we need as a society to lift each other up and move society in an entirely new direction. And there has never been a greater potential to move it in a positive direction than there is now. The timeline is trickier to know, right? I agree that the next 10 to 15 years are very, very important, but it could be over the next 50 years that happens. But there's some window, just like Isaac Asimov had postulated in Foundation, there's some window of suffering that will take place. And we have the opportunity to minimize that window as much as possible and then to come out the other end in a more positive place than we could have ever imagined.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, whether it's, 10 to 15 years, which is what I believe, or whether it's, 20, 30, 40 years, it means that you and I will most likely be alive for it.
And have the chance to make an impact.
The chance to make an impact.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. I mean, this has really been amazing. I really
Incredibly
appreciate
honored,
all
Brett.
the stories you've shared and showing your heart like that. I didn't know the story about your grandmother.
Yeah.
And that was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's an honor. I am so appreciative of you having me on here and appreciative that you're doing this. I mean, this is an example of what we're talking about. The more people that do this, talk about it, bring people in, and what you're doing is helping people at a time where the network effect of doing it through something like this is bigger than ever before.
Yeah.
And that's part of how we
Well,
get there.
thanks so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, I'm really putting it all out on the field, and including being very transparent about everything in my life,
Yeah.
because I am operating from that place where it is very love centered,
Yeah.
but it is an intense time where I think the exponential curve is so pronounced
Mhm.
that the next 10 to 15 years are the most important years for humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's gonna be fun. I'm here for it. You're here for it,
Yeah.
and let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
You're a very good person, and you're definitely gonna help us manifest a better future for everyone.
I'm excited for all of us. I'm very appreciative. Like, I mean, one thing that should be said is that, you know, people like yourself that have been very, very successful, like you were talking about, like you IPO'd a company by the time you were 40. I don't know how many people have done that. It's a very, very, very small group of people. You're the only person that I know that has done that. There are a lot of people that do those things, and you absolutely do not have to do this. You could just be hanging out on a beach now somewhere forever, but you're taking your time to do stuff like this. And I hope this also, beyond inspiring people to like get involved with and try AI if they haven't yet and do some of these things, I hope it also inspires other people like yourself that have reached such a high level of success to dedicate more of their life to this kind of philanthropy, because you have the ability to make an outsized impact, which is what you're
Well,
doing. And
thank
I'm
you.
very appreciative of you doing
I
that.
really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
And the I really view it as, out of the 8.2 billion humans in the world, there's about maybe 2,000 that really oppress the majority,
Yeah. Yeah.
and determine the rules of the road. And I am hoping that those leaders in particular have a real heart shift,
Yeah.
because this age of abundance for all is a very real outcome for
Mhm.
humanity, but we have to manifest it.
Yes.
Always with
Yeah.
technology, we have free will, and we could use it for bad or good. So I really think that the biggest challenge is ourselves
Yes.
in that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, this is super fun. So thanks everybody for tuning in to another awesome episode of Love Conquers Fear. I really, really enjoyed this and loved the fact that we got to see Morgan's heart as well. You can see why Deborah and I early on invested in him and Daina, and why it's such a natural thing to do. And their company is doing really great things for the world. So definitely check out Bold Metrics. Um, Stay tuned. I've got an incredible lineup of scientists coming on, philosophers, spiritual teachers, as well as, of course, investors and entrepreneurs. I'm really putting it all in the field to leverage that network, and operating from that principle of love, but also intensity in terms of how important this period is. So help spread the word if you're enjoying following along. I'm having a blast on this, and I hope you are too. Thanks again.